Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Great Day Houston. As you know, we've shared a number of stories in honor of African American History Month. The stories we're about to share aren't just written on the pages of books, they're also written in stone. Olivewood Cemetery sits on 7.5 acres in the heart of Houston. It's the city's oldest African American cemetery, founded in 1875, just a decade after Emancipation. It's where Houston's early African American leaders, entrepreneurs, and civic pioneers were laid to rest. After decades of neglect, a small group of people stepped in, refusing to let their ancestors be forgotten. And they showed how cemeteries aren't scary or sad places. Instead, they can be a collective roadmap of where we've been and how far we've come.
I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, just like the tree planted by the water.
There's an old saying that the first generation knows, the second generation remembers, and the third forget. You know, I have a ritual that when I get here and I open up the gate, for some reason I pause and always say, do I have permission to enter? And look like it always says permission granted. So that right there just tells me I'm welcome.
I am Margot Williams. I'm a descendant and president of Descendants of Olivewood. We're at historic Olivewood Cemetery. As you can see, we're probably about a mile, maybe 2 miles away from downtown Houston.
Olivewood is hugely significant to Houston because it's the oldest incorporated African American cemetery, and buried inside of its grounds are some of the leading figures in Houston's history, especially from the late 19th century.
10 years after Emancipation, this beautiful place was created.
So this is a first generation Houstonians buried here at Olivewood. It was formed 150 years ago. So that's a lot of history, sir, that wasn't in my textbooks.
Here at Olivewood, we have 3 of the 4 founders of Emancipation Park buried here, and Elias Dibble is one of those founders. He is one of the first African-American Methodist preachers in Texas, and we were just able to repair his headstone. It had been overturned. Another founder of Emancipation Park is Richard Allen. He's one of Texas's first African-American state legislators, and he was also important in city government. He was elected when we had aldermen. He was a former alderman. And Richard Brock's plot is across from the Vance plot. And though he doesn't have a monument, he is the key to how we have reestablished the numbering system for the plots here in Olivewood. He was the only plot that still had one of the original lot numbers.
I am a descendant of Cain Howard Nelson Sr. This is my granddad on my mom's side, and this is the gentleman who kind of got Descendants of Olivewood started.
The first time I came here in 1993, this cemetery had been overgrown for about 50 years. So you can imagine nothing was visible. It was choked with vines, vegetation, you name it, it was here in Olivewood. You couldn't see one monument. That's how overgrown it was. It was bad, it was deplorable.
On the one hand, Olivewood, it records this thriving community and this pride that Houston's African Americans had in the late 19th and early 20th century when the cemetery was founded. But it's also connected to the history of segregation and Jim Crow. And the fact that it was a segregated space also meant that after Reconstruction and after the decline of African American political power in the South until the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act, it meant that public resources, public goods, the city was not as concerned with maintaining and supporting private groups and organizations like the Olivewood Cemetery.
When I first started doing this work, it was hard. I was out here by myself. There was one time when I was up to here and I had a rake, I had a sickle, and I was so far from ever getting to this. And just the part that I had cut, it kept growing back and growing back and growing back. And to just cut it down to here, and then 2 weeks later you come back, 3 weeks later it's up to here. And being able to just be able to find my grandfather's grave, I came back and I sat down beside him and I said, would you think that I'm a loser? Because I gotta walk away. This is killing me. I can't do this anymore, Granddaddy. I can't. And I said, would you think hard of me that I just can't do this anymore?
I personally love to say that your communities at rest need communities of the living to make sure that their memories endure. And it's not just telling the stories, it's physically protecting the space.
It's just so wonderful to see the progress that has been made and to be able to look across the cemetery and you can actually walk up to a monument and you can read it. It's been clean. We've done a lot of cleaning here over the years. So it's just a labor of love and appreciation. You can see the instant gratification of your work when you come out here and volunteer at Olivewood.
So that's the beauty of having the volunteers out and having their support.
We have nearly 5,000 burials, but at the current time, there are probably 1,100 headstones that remain. And so being able to protect and preserve as much of the original architecture in the cemetery is really important to us.
I bought all of my materials, all my lawnmowers, all the weed eaters, all the string, the gasoline, everything comes out of my personal budget. So I asked Olivewood nothing but just to let me take care of it. I'm getting kind of teary-eyed. Oh, yeah, it's special. It's powerful. It's a powerful story here, and it must be told.
I believe it is so important to preserve our past, and I often think about a quote from the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, who said that it can never be as it should be until we tell it like it was. And a place like Olivewood is one of the places where we can learn how it was, both the good and the bad, and we can remember all of the aspects of the history of our city. Until we do that, we can't look forward to the city that we all most want to live in and build.
Our cemeteries are a living archive. They're a way to tell the stories of great men who did great things to people who were teachers, people who did laundry. All of those people are important to a community, and it's how the communities that call, the African American communities that call Houston home, we stand on their shoulders.
We're setting a precedence of what can and what must be done to preserve these old cemeteries.
Why is it so important? Why does this place matter? This place matters because it is part of the America story. This place matters because it is a part of the city of Houston story. This place matters because it is part of Texas story. That's why it matters.
This is 7.5 acres in the middle of Houston. You know, this is something that traditionally communities get pushed away from. This is valuable land, but it belongs to them.
I shall not be moved just like a tree that's planted by the water. I shall not be moved.
If you'd like to volunteer or donate to help preserve historic Olivewood Cemetery, visit descendantsofolivewood.org. We would like to give a special thanks to the organizations listed for their help in providing Great Day Houston with photos seen in this story.